It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
So let's talk about this. Where should I financially be by my age group when I'm in my 20s and have the mindset for where I should be when I enter the 30s? How do we set this whole thing up? So here's where I want to go with this. I have told you guys from day one that you need to go ahead and have the mindset of saving 15 to 20% of your gross income. That's before deductions. That's before deductions.
Taxes, before it all.
15 to 20%. You guys lost your mind when you heard me say 15 to 20%. But I'm not kidding. That really is the goal. But I'm also a reasonable person. When I first graduated college, I made $28,000 out of school at UGA. Right. Got into a public accounting. And I know it's much higher now, but it was $28,000 at the time. There's no way I was saving 15 to 20% of my income.
And buying groceries and
we're reasonable. This is your stretch goal. I want you to know, don't panic. Realize this is a stretch goal, and this is something aspirational that you need to strive for, because I know a lot of you guys that listen. Let's face it, you're listening to a financial show. Sure. You're already 3 steps ahead of your average peer. So more than likely, your income is going to go much faster and increase at a level that you're not anticipating. I want to go ahead and give you the tools and where that mindset should be so you don't squander that opportunity.
So if 15 to 20% is the goal, the aspirational goal, is there a baseline? Is there a minimum level? Hey, start here.
When you start working, you're going to notice your employer probably offers some type of incentive to get you saving. They're going to offer a matching or a profit sharing, but a lot of times they want you to have some buy-in, some skin in the game, and it's like 3 to 4%. At a minimum, do the employer match. You know, whatever you have to put in, it's usually 3 to 4%. So that's why I'd like you to start is somewhere between 3 to 4%. Make that your baseline savings goal when you start in the 20s.
And so one thing that we talk about all the time is, okay, most folks can walk away from 3 to 4%, but that's still a far cry from 15 to 20. And so one thing that we tell folks all the time is, as you advance in your career, as you get pay raises, as you have life start to accelerate, just because you start at 3% doesn't mean that you stay at 3%.
Yeah. And
a great strategy that we talked about pre-show, Brian, is every year you get a pay raise, as part of that pay raise, just bump it up. 3% goes to 4%, 4% to 5%, and so on, until you are getting those 15 to 20% numbers.
A clarifier there that I want to make sure that I share with you guys. If you're only increasing at 1%, I consider that you're in a job where you're getting cost of living increases, where you're getting a 3 to 4% pay raise, then I understand that's going to be 1%. Sure. But a lot of you guys are professionals where, like I said, you're the scale that your income is going to go up. If your income is going up 10, 15% a year, don't make it a 1% increase. You are shortchanging your future if you have that mindset where you're only doing, you're kind of still borrowing off your future. So if you do have huge jumps in your income, really challenge yourself to get that 15 to 20% as soon as possible.
And in a second, we're going to share just how powerful those early dollars, those first dollars, can really be.
Yeah, I'm going to let Bo, as a thank you to the previous show, Bo is kind of going to be our tour guide on going through those numbers of what the money could be. And you're going to see there's a big difference. You 20-year-olds have an opportunity that our 40 and 50-year-olds just do not have. Your money has a multiplier effect. That army of dollar bills gets so excited that it does a lot more work for you than it does for a 40 or 50-year-old. And we're going to give you actual numbers to demonstrate that. But let's first get into some of these valuable wealth building habits that if you can start doing this stuff in your 20s, without a doubt will put you head and shoulder above your peers. And this list is going to be longest for my 20 and 30-year-olds, and that's for a purpose, because that's when it's most valuable to set these goals. So the first thing, this is, and I also feel like I need to set the table. A lot of these ideas came from, I made this collaborative. We have a great team here at Abound Wealth and the Money Guy team, is that we have a lot of good associates of all age groups, and our administrative team is spectacular. So I did this where I said, okay, here's the show idea. Y'all tell me, like Carol, who you'll hear about in this show, super successful, then took some time off to raise family. And then her family is done great things financially. This is awesome that she was able to give me insight. And then I've got Matt, who's our newest addition to the team. He's been able to kind of throw his insight of what he's seen his peers do in the early 20s. And then of course we got Gabe some input in as well. But here's what this first one kind of came from Matt. And it was talking about make sure that your college degree choice, whenever you're in the college phases, so when we say 20s, we're going beyond even before you graduate. Right. Make sure you choose that major that's going to have a great ROI, return on investment. There was an article, and I put a link to it on our show notes, that hopefully maybe that link can make it out there, is what is your ROI on your college degree? This is now, it's got a little age on it.
This is a Bankrate article.
From Bankrate.com from 2015. And what I thought was interesting, and I don't want to spend too much time because we have a lot of habits to go through, but it basically shows what they estimate your income will be with this degree, the average income for this profession. It estimates what probably the cost of the degree, and it assumes, I guess it's assuming that you're going to, how long would it take? What's the break-even point if you're assuming 15% of your income from this profession went towards the cost of the education? Okay, what's the break-even point in years? And it was shocking to me, without a doubt, the shortest one was sales related.
Of course.
If you do something in sales, your break point is probably around 5 years. That's all the marketing majors and things like that. But I think that's probably a little short-sighted. Of course, people in sales do really well, but it's not necessarily coming out of school with a college degree in sales.
It's actually being good at
selling.
You
got to be good at sales. So, I mean, I tell that as a cautionary tale because I don't want a bunch of people thinking, if I go get a sales degree like marketing, other things, that's easy street. No, you got to have some skill set because sales, there's a reason it pays well. That's right. I have a lot of neighbors who are in sales because it does pay well. Well, the ones that were surprising, of course, at the top of the list was your civil engineers, your accountants, and those type pharmacists, physicians. Even though they have
attorneys was on there somewhere.
Yeah, attorneys were probably mid-level dentists, lawyers. If you want to, I'm going to flip the page though and go to the bottom side because let's talk about who it takes 22 years to get break even. If you have a profession that takes 22 years to recoup your cost of education,
that's over half your working career.
You might have a problem.
Yeah.
And it's your marriage and family therapist, it's your reporters, and this one surprised me, a veterinarian and even teachers.
Oh, wow.
So I tell you all this as a cautionary tale. Make sure you're getting an ROI on your investment. And then the last thing, I know college forever, and I'm a huge education proponent, but there are some of our biggest clients do not have college degrees.
That's right.
So if you know that you were put on this earth to do something that maybe is not traditional, I'm talking about, we have people that are exterminators. We have people that are in the services like plumbers, heating and air, people, self-taught programmers, coders.
That's what I was thinking of.
These things, if you find that you were put on this earth to do these things, you don't necessarily have to have a college degree. And believe me, I'm an education proponent, but I would be doing you a disservice if I just assumed that there's not alternative paths.
That's right.
We have people who deal with robotics that, I don't even want to go into some of the obscure ways you can make money, but it's not always the traditional path. So pay attention to what that return on investment is. Bo, you had a great point when we were talking about this is, let's talk about the why of why you work.
So not only do you need to find, when you think about your college diploma, you need to find a degree that has a high ROI. You also need to find something you kind of enjoy, you kind of have a passion about, because if you just go to work every day for 40 years and you're really just clocking in, checking in and checking out, you're going to miss a lot of the fullness that you can experience in that. So don't only work to build independence, but work on something that brings you purpose and try to seek out that thing that brings you purpose. But this is the small disclaimer we have to put on there. And I feel like this is especially true inside of folks who kind of fall into my generation. Just because you're finding something you're passionate about and something that you really care about doesn't mean that you don't have to grind for maybe the first 5, 6, 7, 10 years and really do things that maybe you don't love. Your dream job may not be your dream job on day one. You may have to put in a few years in the trenches to turn it into your dream job. So that's something you have to keep in mind.
And here's the thing. When you're in your 20s, you don't have a ton of experience, but probably you have more capacity.
That's right.
Because you don't have kids. You don't have some of the commitments that your older peers. There is, unfortunately, it falls on your shoulders that, and I thought this was great when we were doing show prep, but you do have to be prepared to kind of sacrifice a little bit in your 20s so that you can have that reward in the future. And I had a lunch with a friend of mine from many years ago. He's had wins, he's had losses. I mean, he was, successful and then crashed and then, completely broke, and then he's back on his way up. And I thought something he said was pretty powerful, or it kind of came up in our conversation, was, you said the working to build purpose, but the point that was made was not working to get away from what you do. I think so many people, and I want to challenge my 20-year-olds who think that they want to get out at 30 or 40, and so they're going to go take a career in something that really don't like, but they heard that's where the money is.
Right.
Be careful with that, because if you're working to get away, because I think how often do we see doctors, engineers, attorneys who go there because they think that's where the money is, and then they get in the middle of it and they're like,
they just hate it.
I don't like this. Yeah, this is not what I'm meant to do. And that scares me a little bit, because half your life, if you're spending 40 hours a week, at a minimum, you're doing 40 hours, maybe 50, half your life is spent working, so you better make sure you enjoy doing it.
That's right.
This next one makes me sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but I think there's a lot of power to it. Learn to say thank you. People will want to, and this is something I've worked on with you, Bo. I want to give you a compliment. I've told you this on many shows that we've done on gratitude.
Sure.
You have always done a really good job of making sure when somebody did anything for you that you said thank you. If somebody bought you a meal, if you had an opportunity. And I told Matt the same thing.
Sure.
Matt's our newest team member. And he always, whenever you ask him or talk to him, he's very thankful for anything you do for him. And people will want to mentor and love on you if you do have that mentality or that heart that's gracious and you're an awesome gift recipient. Right. And this led to because I wrote this down because it came to me. Entitlement is an obstacle to reaching success.
Oh, that's a good one.
No, it really is, because if you don't have this gracious heart that says thank you, it kind of comes off as that you're supposed to be here. And when you're younger looking for breaks and opportunities, I'll just tell you, as an older guy, I know I sound like an old timer yelling at the kids to get off the porch. I really do. I recognize this, but with age comes some wisdom.
Sure.
Is that I can tell you I love paying it forward. And man, does it hit. It gives you want to hit with a bang versus a thud.
Yeah.
Make when you get something, just feel like it filled your heart when somebody gives you something, and you'll get more of it. That's probably the best way to put it. This one came from Matt too. I thought it was really good. Responsibly build your credit.
Oh, that one's a huge one in your 20s.
In your 20s,
often gets overlooked.
Because so much of your financial life is going to be judged by your credit. We all think about the common sense things. The low-lying fruit is purchasing power, your cars, your houses.
Yeah.
But there's also this new thing that's happened in the last decade is risk profiles are built upon you based upon your credit. Yeah. And that's your home, your auto insurance, your utilities. And here's something that came up, and we've mentioned this on previous shows. Don't wait too late to get your credit.
Yep.
If you're a college student, the credit card companies are falling all over themselves to give you credit. I'm not saying go out there and do everyone for that bag of potato chips, but at least make sure by the time you leave college, you at least have one credit card set up so you have a credit history that you can start creating, your own score out there to be judged off of. This next one. Here's another habit. Have a long-term mindset. I'm talking about thinking 3 years, 5 years, 10 years later. Don't let life happen.
Yeah, this one I struggle with sometimes because I often hear this saying so much is I'm living my best life now. And I think that's awesome, and you should live your best life now. But you don't need to just focus on living your best life now. How about doing some stuff now to make your best life 10 years from now really, really excellent, really, really awesome. And I feel like that gets missed on this generation a ton.
Yeah, because what came up in our discussions was don't go buy the BMW now. Right. Because there's a lot of people, your 50-year-old self will thank you if you don't make some of these bad decisions when you're younger and get yourself really behind. Because as we get into the examples of what money could be, you're going to see every dollar is more valuable than you probably realize. Yep. Know the season you're in. I hate to keep picking on you.
Well, that's all right. That's what I'm here for.
You need to know the season you're in, and the fact that I think when you're in your 20s, and a lot of you guys, if you're watching a financial podcast, I'm going to just go ahead and group you is that you're a doer.
Yeah.
I mean, without a doubt, you're a doer.
Overachiever.
And doers and overachievers have a hard time looking around and enjoying the day, the weather, the season of their life currently. You're constantly feeling like, what's next? You're already, maybe some of you are even more guilty of that previous step, having too long-term of a mindset where you're not living enough and understanding where you are. And I put this, think about the decisions. People feel like, I know there's this constant our society has created where, okay, I got to go to college. After I go to college, I got to make sure while I'm at college, I figure out my career, but also I got to find that right person to be my spouse.
Yep.
After I get the spouse, we've got to buy the house. Oh, after we buy the house, we got to start the family.
It's just very formulaic.
That's where the treadmill kind of kicks in and you start putting all this pressure on yourself. And Bo, you've always been such an overachiever that I tell you to slow down. And I said, look, one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be, in your 40s. You're going to be in your 50s. You're going to have all the things that you want, but you need to, because some of my fondest memories come from things that happened in your 20s when you are struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember when my wife got her first big job and we went and celebrated and spent what we thought was the most expensive meal where we did fondue and, now it's kind of funny, but I just get almost that goosebumps feeling every time I kind of go back into it. And the thing I always also share is that the curve. I think everybody always wants to be well ahead of the curve. You want to know when you're looking at that bell curve of you and your peers that you're always ahead of the curve. But I'm going to tell you something. That curve catches you. Age just naturally makes that curve catch you. So make sure you're taking a deep breath, breathe in life, and don't let some societal formula of when and where you need to do stuff. All this stuff is good. I mean, getting married is good. Buying a house is good. Starting a family is good. But make sure it's on your timetable and not some artificial scale that just is being pushed upon you, or that you're skipping steps and not enjoying the day you're in. Did I give enough love to that?
No, and I think that's perfect. And I think where we went, Brian, is from that we kind of talked about, well, there are some things that you can put in place to make yourself feel better about that. So to not feel like you're always having to get ahead of the curve and go out there. And a real easy one that we set is automate some stuff. Specifically, your investing in your savings behavior. If you can automate that, that'll be one less thing for you to think about so that you can enjoy the here and now. And you know how much you can spend and how much you are saving.
If I'm talking about wealth habits, one of the things is go create wealth. And that mindset is the automating your investing. If you can automate your savings / investing, because it is a mindset, through forced scarcity, we talk about that all the time. Go ahead and pay yourself first. Go ahead and set up the behavior that's going to make it where automatically you're funding these goals, where even as you're getting these big pay raises in the future, that you're not letting lifestyle creep take over and borrow from your future self. Start saving something was another savings habit that I put on here, and a wealth habit. And you got to start with something. Remember, I told you the baseline is probably 3 to 4%. If you're in one of those, I barely can afford to get by. At least try to do 3 to 4%. So you at least start that habit. Realize when you first come out and you go out on your own, you've got 20 years of a consumer's mindset more than likely. I mean, just because your parents have taken care of you, or you've had things happen to where you haven't necessarily been out on your own. So you've got to reprogram that mind. I did a great thing when we were talking about the Keeping Up with the Joneses show, one of the 2 weeks ago show. I talk about that well-worn path. When you're starting a habit, it's going to look like a treacherous trail, treacherous woods. I mean, you'll look at, there's no trail at all.
Right.
It takes a while to turn that woods into a well-worn path. And that's through the habits of these wealth habits that we're talking about. So make sure you understand what it takes to start saving something.
And this is the beautiful behavioral shift, I think, that happens. Is you might say, well, I can't save anything. I'm tight. I'm paycheck to paycheck. It's amazing if you do start saving that $20 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever your number is, after 6, 8, 10, 12 months, you'll be amazed at what's accumulated, and you kind of get addicted to it. You're kind of like, oh, well, maybe I can turn
No
that
doubt.
50 into 75, or maybe
And
I
that's
can
that empire mindset
That's
that we talked
exactly
about
right.
once you start saving like that. Here's one. I think a lot of students, when they're in college, you daydream about not having to read 3 chapters in 2 days. I mean, you think, when I get out, I just can't wait to not have to read. I don't want to break your heart, but I want the other wealth habit is that you have a hunger to always be learning.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you graduate from college or graduate from whatever your highest education, guys, I want you to have that mindset that even though you're out of school, formal education school, that you're still, I read more now than I did in college. I mean, I know that probably sounds weird.
I agree.
But I do. I find I read a lot more now. And I have this, I mean, I love that the internet lets you, if you have a curiosity, like me and my daughter have been going through this thing knowing about honeybees. How is honey and all but there's a hunger there. And I'm saying it can manifest itself into many different ways, saving goals, career things. How do you get better at being good at your job? But I'm just saying, always be a student of life and always want to be reaching for higher things to make yourself just better. And this shouldn't be just something for 20s. This is for 20s, 30s, 40s. This is universal. And then here's the last one I'll say for my 20-year-olds, because I don't want you to feel like I'm picking on you, is that this is your time when you're in your 20s to think about risk. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying think about risk with fear. I'm saying think about risk. Is this an opportunity for you? I mean, is this the time to move to a different part of your country? Of your country.
We have folks all over the world, so I'm not even going to correct you. That's probably true.
But I do want to challenge people. I grew up in Georgia most of my life, and I'm always forever, South Atlanta will be the town that made me.
Sure.
But moving to a different part, I mean, it was an adventure.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that there is nothing wrong if you look, like I had to do it for family reasons, but maybe you need to do it for career purposes. Mm-hmm. Maybe you need to do it. Consider it. I mean, 20s is a good time to make it happen. Start a business or make a career change. 20s, nothing wrong if that's when you're looking. And you put it out there, Bo. You got to be prepared to burn the midnight oil. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so what happens is in your 20s, the fact is you just have more capacity likely than you're going to have later on in your life. And so if you do move and it doesn't work out well, you can rebound. If you do start a business and maybe it doesn't go the way that you think it should, you can rebound from that. Certainly much better in your 20s than in your 40s. But the other thing that I think happens that a lot of folks don't realize is there are times that if you need to go grind it out and work 100 hours a week, not suggesting that you do that, you can do that kind of stuff in your 20s when you have less obligations, less family stuff going on, less community stuff going on. You have the ability to do that. And so don't squander that. Take advantage of the fact that this is the part of life where you have a lot of margin. So don't be afraid to do that and to put that work in.
You're going to get some troll comments on that.
Why?
I'm just predicting it. I think that's going to be, that is troll comment bait right there. So we'll see if it happens. So, Bo, get into, now that we've gone through the work hard, play hard, talk to us about the motivation for what could be. Get into the numbers.
So what we did is we went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and we pulled some average incomes. And you've already heard this. And so this is what we said. We said if you're a 25-year-old and the average income in that echelon in the lower end was $27,456 a year, if you start saving at age 65, right? So you're going to start saving at 25. You're going to make $27,000 a year. You're going to go all the way to 65.
Did you say you start saving at 65?
I'm sorry. You start saving at 25 and you go all the way until age 65 with no pay raises or no increase in your savings rate. And if all you're doing is putting in 3% of your pay and you're getting a 3% match. So that's just simple math. 6% of your money is going into savings. By the time you hit 65, you're going to have $868,170.
So putting in $68 a month, and you're getting a match from your employer of $68 a month. Never getting a pay raise. I mean, this is
almost
humbling.
a millionaire. You're
very
almost
humbling.
a millionaire.
But that money, and how much did they actually put in? I mean, what was the actual contribution from the person?
So the total amount that you put in over your entire working career was just under $66,000, and the account is worth $868,000. That's 92% of the total value of your investments is from the growth. But you might be saying, okay, well, 868 sounds cool. What would I need to do if I wanted to be a millionaire? How much do I need to save? If you're that 25-year-old, you need to save about $160 a month. The actual number is exactly $158. well, what if I want to be a 2 millionaire by the time I'm 65? You would need to save about $316 a month.
I think the way I'd say it was have $2 million. 2 millionaire.
If you want to be a millionaire twice, 2 times over, save 360. And then if you want to go to 3 million, if that's kind of the thing that you're shooting for, you would only need to save $474 a month to get to $3 million.
So this is worth repeating because I want to challenge all my 20-year-olds. I want you to go watch our series or stay tuned to listen to the 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, and even the 50-year-olds because we're going to have the same numbers. 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. And you're going to hear that it's going to take a lot more, a multiple of $158 to reach $1 million.
Right.
I mean, 158, and realize a portion of that's probably coming from your employer. Mm-hmm. We already heard in the previous example, if you were getting a 3% match, right. I mean, that means that you're not even putting in $100 a month to get to $1 million if you're getting a match.
Yeah. To
be worth $2 million. See, I didn't make it a 2 millionaire. It's $316 a month, and then less than $500 a month, $474 a month gets you to $3 million. I know that might seem like a stretch when you're 25 years old to save $500 a month, but realize some of it is coming from your employer. Sure. Dude, and it's amazing.
And I have friends who went out and bought that BMW right when they graduated college. They were paying more than $500 a month for that car. They very easily could have shifted that and be working towards $3 million.
And 92% of that $3 million could come from the growth, assuming, now we realize this assumption used 10%,
sure.
Which came, I think S&P historically is around 10.16 if you look at it historically. But, as you get older, you're going to have more diversification, but it's a good illustration. So that is amazing. So get to work. I want to pivot and talk about my 30-year-olds now.